and good morning, everyone. I'd like to be the first to welcome you to our Farm and Ranch Friday podcast. My name is Lindsey Hollin. I am a farm and ranch broker, and I carry my brokerage group, Texas Rural Land Sales Group with eXp Realty. And today I'm very excited to talk about a hot topic because when it gets hot or it's not so hot, we deal, see what I did there? We deal with watersheds and drought and flooding impact. So this is a farm and ranch podcast. We talk about farm and ranch from not only the real estate agent or brokerage side, but we also want to make our clients and potential landowners more knowledgeable about what's going to happen in these scenarios and situation, because land is a multi-dimensional concept, and really understanding all the facets that you can and can't control, and the resources that are available when you do come across maybe some issues that are going to impact you as a landowner. So I'm very excited today to introduce Miss Stacy Bray. Stacy is one of our farm and ranch advisors here at eXp Realty. She's been, an educator of these topics for quite some time. She's a dear friend and a wonderful teacher. So Stacy, go ahead and tell me a little bit, or tell the crowd a little bit about yourself and your background and kind of how you got started in real estate and farm and ranch real estate.
Well, I've been in real estate now. It'll be 30 years this year. And I started out new home sales, and then I went on to achieving my real estate license. And when I did that, I also had very small children and moved over into the mortgage world, and I was there for 20 years, and I had my real estate license at the same time. But I had to choose which one was I going to do for a career and take care of my family, and it ended up being mortgages for about 20 years. I came back around not too long ago and worked for an escrow officer as an escrow officer for a year, and decided, no, that's really not where my forte is. And I wanted to go back to selling homes. So I did let my license go at some point through those 30 years. And I had to sit for the license one more time. And part of the reason was just to be able to educate, our real estate agents on different courses that I had written when I went to school, got my master's in education, and actually it was agricultural education. So it's a little bit more pointed that way, but water and environment was the big part of my focus. So that's kind of how I got started. And for my master's, I wrote 5 courses, started my education company, and all my courses were written for realtors for CE credit.
Oh, that's awesome. And so one of the presentations, if I'm mistaken, that you're presenting today is one of your CE classes that you've presented for before. But I think we kind of tweaked it a little bit to be more land agent centric. Is that correct?
Yeah, we did. There's still a little bit of residential in there, but what residential is in there is really more about your house and your buildings. And most farms and ranches have houses and buildings, so it's still pertinent.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, thank you so much for sharing this information. I do want to let everyone in the audience know, if you have any questions, please feel free to drop them in the chat. We have this streaming on multiple platforms, but we can see all the chats as well. So whether you're on Facebook, YouTube, or LinkedIn, we can hear you. So please feel free to reach out in that way. And we will be sharing a lot of this information in the slides and any pertinent stuff a little later on with the links. So just wanted to make you guys aware of that. Stacy, we're going to get you ready. All righty.
Great. Okay, so this first slide, it does have my provider information on here and the name of my company, but I am a realtor at eXp and still showing property and still love to teach. So we'll go ahead and go on to the next here. The objective here really truly is just letting you know what a watershed is, how it impacts our environment, whether it be impacting our homes or wildlife or our livestock. There is damage that can happen from flood, and I think a lot of us being here in Texas, we know what floods can do, especially in the central Texas area where we have the karst rocks, and some of it will flow underground, but it runs off pretty fast when it comes down hard. Right now, we are in a drought, and that's concerning to us, and we'll talk a little bit more about that. And then we want to talk a little bit about how we can conserve water as well. And I know because we're not in a classroom environment that I love to teach in person where we can have interactive conversations. And I know that I can watch and see you're listening and that you're interested in something. But, at some point in time, if you ever see me, just catch me, and here's some very thought-provoking discussions that we can have. One of the things that I think is most important to you guys would be, can my well run dry? And then, if it does, then what? There's some terminology that, going through the water classes, normally we'd be, talking about these, face to face, but most of these you're probably going to know. There's a few things that you don't, but we're going to go over most of these here in this presentation. So what is a watershed? A watershed is kind of like a sink basin. And if you look at the top of the sink, if it goes towards the basin, to the funnel, down to the drain, all your water is going to run that direction. If there's a slope going the other direction, it's going to all run off into the floor or to another, in this case, another watershed. So all the watersheds are just lined up one right after another. You have minor watersheds, you have, streams and creeks, you have dry creeks. All of those are a part of the watershed, but in your big watershed, you just want to look at it as a basin, and everything starts rolling down into the drain. Your drain is actually where you're running down into the ocean. And then what threats do we have? And, I was thinking about this while I was going back and reviewing and adding a couple slides and updating a few slides. Our threats are mostly humans. We're the ones who threaten our watersheds the most out of anybody. Whether we overuse them, we use too much water, we tap into the aquifers too much, we're tapping in with straws into the lakes, to the reservoirs. But there's also other threats too, and those threats could be possibly we've put some damaging chemicals or gasoline or something that might run off into our watersheds. Point being, the Ohio train crash that just happened. This is going to be a cleanup for a very long time, and how it impacts our watershed is just, it's enormous. And you're seeing through the news how it can impact a watershed. So another thing that threatens us is population explosion, which is really what we're having here in Texas right now. And when you look at a particular watershed and the impact that the population can have on our reservoirs, that's huge. If we've built too many homes and we're drawing from the aquifer for water, you're looking at the aquifer may not have enough water to sustain that population. So we've got to make sure that we manage it, and we'll talk about how that happens. We also waste a lot of water, and there's areas that I know, especially like in the city of Austin, there's the top 10 that use too much water. And I know they talk to them and try and get them to, conserve water a little bit more, because whatever water they use on their yards is water taken away from our reservoirs and our aquifers. Make sure that, one of the things on the water conservation, we'll talk about this in a bit, but, what plants do you plant? Which ones need a lot of water, which ones don't need a lot of water. Those are the ones that we're starting to think about how we actually plant things in our yards. The way to look at a aquifer and your watershed, really truly the watershed looks more, the aquifers are going to be underground, that's your groundwater, but your watershed consists of rivers, lakes, streams, and they look like a tree. So if you imagine a tree, your very small branches are going to be your dry creek beds that, will fill up with water after we get some rain going. That runoff will go then into the bigger streams, and maybe they're year-round streams. And then it goes into the rivers, and then it'll flow on down to the ocean. And you can kind of imagine this by what you see. And Lindsay, can you see my cursor on here? Does it show or not? I was kind of hoping to do the cursor for a pointer, but that may not work. So
No,
anyway,
the back end. Sorry about
that. Probably not. But if you look at the left picture, you have your small watersheds up towards the top and then your larger watershed towards the bottom. So here in Central Texas, our large watershed is going to be the LCRA, which is the Lower Colorado River. That will flow down eventually down into the estuaries, into the ocean. It's really important that we make sure that water is flowing because the estuaries also need to have some flow to them as well. Then on the right side, that's one that it really looks like a tree. This truly is a picture of a watershed. It is not a tree branch. It is a watershed, and they did it with LiDAR. Okay, so here's our Texas basins, and all throughout the state, these are the basins that are all a part of what we have for conservation, our water conservation storage. And you can see the larger ones. Let's see, the largest one is actually, it looks like the Sabine. The Rio Grande is pretty big as well. And keep in mind that a lot of them are going to be giving water to farms and ranches through irrigation. And I'll show you a chart in a little bit that will show where that water comes from, whether it comes from underground or whether it comes from some of the storage. But the storage here, this is showing you how many acre feet we have in water storage in each one of these basins. This one here is on the Lower Colorado River storage, and you can see over years. So it starts in 1940, and then it goes on to, yeah, actually it's gone past 2020. It's going into this one I just pulled. So this says July 2022. So it's not quite up to speed as of today, but it's close. This will show you here where the average storage is in that basin. And then this one here is going to show you where the full stage is. So through the years, it just kind of goes up and down because we have droughts, and then we have flooding, and then we have droughts, and we have flooding, so it's just going up and down all through the years. This one here was a very severe drought. You guys probably remember we kind of started somewhere around 2012. And it went into 2015, coming out 16, we started getting some rain. And when we get rain here, it comes fast and furious. It doesn't come slowly over time. We get it all at one time. So it pops pretty fast when it comes back up. And those are the times I like to be out at my lake house watching that river or the lake rise. This one here is your conservation storage for all of Texas, and it will show you as an average for all of Texas from 1943 to 2023. And you can see that we're kind of coming down a little bit, but overall it just goes up and down. This is back when they were starting to build all the reservoirs. So you can see then now we've got higher capacity here because we had the reservoirs. This again showing you back where you've got your drought time around the 2013 to 15 time. This map is really cool. And if you go out and you find any map at all, go out and find this map. This Texas Reservoir Monitor, it is a interactive map. So you can actually go and highlight, and of course this is not interactive. I went ahead and just did a screenshot. But if you put your cursor over the top of one of these lakes, it will tell you what % storage capacity it has at that particular time. And it will tell you what the max would be, what the low end would be. You can get some history on it. But the really cool thing is you just real quick, you can see what % storage that it's full. All these blues, these guys are all on East Texas side, and they are really pretty much 90s. They're 85, 90% full. So they're doing really well out on the east side of Texas. Central, you can see that we're starting to go into the yellows and oranges. And then, of course, the reds are going to be the ones that they're 20, 30% full. and they're having a hard time. Your yellows and your oranges are probably anywhere from about 50% full to about maybe 65. And then these light blue ones, they're kind of a teal color. They're probably about 70% full. And I'll tell you, the central lakes that I know were sitting around 60% full. They're not doing real well right now. Okay, so here's your water sources. So if you remember last week when Russ talked to us, he was telling us a little bit about groundwater versus surface water. And your groundwater is everything that's underneath. It's, your karst land that water is going to flow underneath the ground and, basically holding tanks. Those are what we call aquifers. The Ogallala Aquifer is actually the largest one in Texas. And the Ogallala really, truly is more Midwest, but we have a huge stored capacity here in Texas for the Ogallala. There's a few others here that they mention. 60% of our water is groundwater. That's what's underneath the surface. 40% is our surface water. And the surface water is going to be our lakes, our rivers, our, whatever's navigable in Texas. The really interesting thing here that you can see is that when you look at the bottom left-hand side, and again, I'm doing my cursor and I'm talking like you can see my cursor, but I bet you can't. But the bottom left side, it tells you what the water is used for. So on the groundwater being on the left side, 80% of that is going towards our irrigation. So everything that you're doing out in farm and ranch, 80% of that water from underground is what the use is for. Then you have 15% of it is municipality. And then on the other side, on the surface water, you have 65% is municipality and 35% is irrigation. So you can see that there's a difference about where your water comes from for your farm and ranch. Most of your water is going to be coming from groundwater. So you want to make sure that you know where the groundwater is coming from, which aquifer. You also want to know who is really truly managing that water, which we're going to come up to here in just a minute. If you don't know about the water cycle, if you look at the ocean, that's where, a lot of the water is. You've got evaporation, it goes into condensation, and then evapotranspiration basically is it's transporting it over land, and then it comes down in rain, snow, and then when it melts or the rain runs off, it's going to either go underground or it's going to run off into streams and lakes. So here it shows your storage down here at the bottom and then back over to the ocean on the right. Okay, so the Edwards Aquifer, one thing that you need to know about really any aquifer is that you do have catchment areas, which your catchment area on the Edwards is in that brown. And then you have the artesian areas and the recharge zones. Those are so ever sensitive areas that those areas go straight down into the aquifer. And we need to be careful about what we have that might run off and go down into the aquifer that will pollute the water. And then out of this Edwards Aquifer, it goes into the Nueces River Basin and also the Guadalupe and the San Antonio. And of course, both of those go down into the bays. I believe this one's Matagorda, and somebody would have to help me with this one here. Anyway, so the aquifer is really, truly, you've got to make sure that you're taking care of what's going to run off into that, because it will, if you've been around any rivers that all of a sudden that river disappears, there's water in it, but it disappears, it's going straight down into the aquifer. Okay, so surface water versus groundwater. We've kind of already talked about it. Your surface water, your lakes, your rivers, your ponds, your streams, and the bays. And then you've also got your groundwater is going to be runoff. It's going to be what goes below the Earth's surface. So it's the underground. And then 80% of that is for our crops. Now let's get into who manages water. And this is a really important part for us to know as we're selling real estate. So there are groundwater management areas, and those groundwater management areas, they're going to take care of conservation and preservation of the water. They also try and protect that water source. They want to have that water source always at a constant level, which, in reality really doesn't work, but planning wise, that's what they try and plan for. These are the management areas, and you call them GMAs. So if you see GMA, it's groundwater management areas. And each one of these areas, there is an office that you can call and talk to them and ask them questions about the water. And sometimes you can see they don't go over the watersheds. The watersheds kind of fall in a west, northwest down to a south transition. The aquifers are in a different area. So these management areas who oversee all this mostly are looking at overseeing a particular aquifer and, looking at your groundwater. So, that's why they're called groundwater management, but they're mostly over the aquifers. Okay, so then on the groundwater conservation districts, these guys are entirely different. These will be very important for you to know where they are. They're not everywhere in Texas. Not every county or water area is going to have a groundwater conservation district. And I'll show you a map that will show you exactly where they're at. But these are the ones that will impose taxes and penalties if we don't do the right thing. But they're also set up to protect landowners and be responsible for the protection of water resources. Here's our map of where the conservation districts are. You can see there's a lot of them. Some of them go by county, but most of them are going to go and, protect the aquifers. So you're looking at this area here. This is a minor aquifer in here. Oh, and I've forgotten the name of it, but I should know it because our ranch is out here. But you've got an aquifer that's a minor one that's right here. And sometimes they sit over the minor ones might sit over the top of a major one. Like the Ogallala really truly is one of those that's a deeper one. And you may have some minor ones that are sitting over the tops of those. Okay, so drought impacts, you need to make sure that, you're watering around the foundation of your buildings, because if you're not watering around those buildings, the buildings will tend to crack or the foundation may crack. So you can see in that upper right-hand corner, that's a house that, has a severe crack on the walls. And then, of course, you've got the reservoirs down on the lower right side. This was the drought time during 2013 to 15. And then what our farm and ranch lands will suffer as well. If we can't get enough water, you're going to have a lot of dry cracking areas. And then you all remember all the fires. Fires that year were horrible. Poor Bastrop really, truly caught the brunt of it. But we had fires all over the state. I had traveled from California with my brother's truck and driving it to Texas. And there were fires all along the way as I was coming home. It was sad to see. Okay, so here's our drought monitor. This is another web page that you might want to go find if you're really truly interested in where the droughts are in Texas. This one here is what it looks like today. And down at the bottom, it shows you a timeline. So I think I can't really read this, but I think this starts around 2000. This is 2012. And that was where we had the severe drought time. And it was pretty much over around at the end of 15, we started getting some rains. And then here we are today. So this started 2022 is starting here and coming into current time. And you can see that where the drought is right now, the most severe is in the Panhandle and in Central Texas. This is what it looked like in October 2021. I would love to see this map again like this. Here's January 2022. And again, Panhandle took some heat there and out Lubbock direction. And then you got here, Central Texas was doing pretty good. And I remember our lake was really full at Lake Buchanan until here just recently. And then that's January 23. And here we are today. So you can see from January 23, look how the change happened. So obviously we got some rain in some areas and we didn't get it in others. And that goes back to your watershed. So if you look at the basin, a watershed basin, you really truly are, your next door neighbor may even be into a different one. And the most severe that I've seen personally is if I'm in, the Lower Colorado River Authority area, and then the Trinity is just on the other side of us. My next door neighbor could actually be in the Trinity, and I'm in the Lower River, Colorado. So you're looking at really, truly differences in these watersheds and where it rains and how it falls into that watershed. Okay, so best management practices, you just want to make sure that your foundation, you keep it from drying out. If you're going to plant any plants, make sure you're planting things that that don't need a lot of water and attention. And then rainwater capture is huge. And right now, if you go searching for rainwater capture for wildlife, you'll really see some interesting ideas that are coming up to try and capture water. If you can capture water for your yard and for your animals, that will definitely help. And then conserving in the home is always a big deal. So here we go on the flooding. So you know that when it floods, and I believe this is out in Wimberley area on this picture here. This looks like this is Dallas. So this is Trinity. I don't remember which one I captured on this one, but you know that when it rains, these rivers swell. Normally this river is not this wide. So we have to always be careful and protect not only our wildlife, but we also need to protect ourselves and some of our property if we can. When it happens like this, there's no way of protecting our property, and we just need to make sure we get out of the way. You can control some of the runoff, and I had some pictures, and I'm sorry I don't have them here right now, but some of the ways to conserve and practice good flood management so that you don't have erosion. Something like this, when you have ditches and drainages, if you can have rocks in it, or there's the special berms that you can purchase that they've got special, plastic type material that will be in long rolls, and you can put those in certain areas on your land so that you don't have erosion issues. This is just a city management type runoff. You can do this around your houses so that you're not letting the water flow directly against your foundation. And then this is another, idea. If you have any kind of pavers and you want to put grass in between the pavers, that's a great way to collect runoff, and it also will filter out any of the greases and oils that come through. And then your water conservation, best thing we can do, it's not the end all be all, but check for any kind of leaks. Make sure that you have low flow, shower heads and toilets, and you just make sure you turn off the water, make sure there's just no leaks. The other thing we can do is make sure that our windmills and our irrigation and our wells are maintained. If they're not maintained properly, we may end up getting some leakage from those as well. So, whatever you can do to keep everything up and running and not leaking. Here's one of my residential slides here, but it's always interesting, so I kept this in here. If you look at your daily life, here's where most of the water is going from day to day, and it's really interesting. Okay, so rain capture, there's a number of different ways to do rain capture. I did a class on building these rain barrels, and some cities had a problem with doing them. So it was like, okay, fine, paint them and make them pretty. That was part of the workshop. Or you can just get drums and fill them up with water, and you can water the yard. You don't need to have the special BPA containers if you're using them for yard. But if you are feeding livestock and wildlife, then you want to make sure that they're protected. If you do rainwater capture for your whole house, and I know that's probably not something that we're going to go into a lot here, but there is a way of doing it. And if you have any interest on that, please let me know, because I used to be a part of a group that's all that they taught, was about how to have your whole house as rain capture. And it will rain significant enough in 90 days for you to be able to capture enough rainwater to survive, if you're conserving. So let's say that you want to capture some water for your livestock and for your yard. Let's say that your barn, you have 2,000 square feet rooftop on your barn, and there's a capture rate. Here's the effective capture. And then your rainfall, let's say it's about 32 inches. So by the time you plug all the numbers in, 33,000 gallons a year is well worth having for wildlife, your livestock, or for even just watering your yard.
Wow, those are some amazing numbers. I get
Yeah.
this a lot. I get this a lot when clients are like, they're worried we're in places that have shallow wells, or wells that, there's just not a great water table. And the more and more that I'm in this field of selling ranches, I've seen just kind of the aha of, wow, rainwater collection systems are amazing. The technology on them has come so far in a very short amount of time. And I'm seeing more and more ranches and houses having rainwater collection, not because there's a lack of water source from the ground, but I've had almost everyone tell me the quality of the water itself is unbelievable. And it's
Mm-hmm.
actually saved them money, because their appliances and equipment using that water, it's as pure as it can get, versus like in the hill country, we have that limestone sediment, and things like, I know in West Texas, they have a little more iron. So I cannot stress knowing this information enough to share with your clients, because rainwater capture is a viable alternative to having a well. And it definitely something to learn more about, to share the opportunity about that, because it's an awesome concept.
Yeah, it is, and it's come a long way in education on this. So all you need to do is go to Google and start Googling rain capture for wildlife, rain capture for livestock, rain capture for yard. And then if you really, really want to have rain capture for your whole house, that is a huge ordeal to to put that into your house. You do need to have a plumber to be able to do it, but you really have the access to good water. And it's just, I know people that have it for their whole house, and it's amazing. One guy, in our group, he had a 33,000 gallon cistern under his house, and that cistern may not have been full all the time, but he said he always had enough rainfall to have enough water to get through the droughts. And during that 2013 to 15 drought, he said he never bought water. Now, if you ended up running out of water because your capture system is not big enough for your whole house, your alternative plan would be to buy water from the tankers. And, they're filling up all the time. I've seen them fill up, and they're taking water to houses and wherever they need to take them to. But you have that alternative to buy water if you absolutely have to. I will tell you, if you're going to get a loan on that house, you're not going to get a loan on that house if you don't have an alternative method other than a tanker bringing water to you. You need to be able to be, sufficient on a well or sufficient on utility. And if you don't have that, the lender's not going to loan you money on it. But you can have that as your backup and just put it in on rainwater, and you've got the best water out there.
So
So
just to clarify, if there is a well, no matter what it produces, low or high, and you have rainwater, the lenders are more apt to lend, versus if you didn't have any well on property.
right. If you have no well and you have no city ability for water, the lender is not going to loan on that property.
Oh, okay, so I
So,
have a question about that. So when you
yeah.
say city ability, some cities actually will truck water. Is that still acceptable as, or does it have to be like a pipe in from the city?
Um, that's a good question. And I think all the lenders are going to make their own decision on this. But typically, if your water is being tanked in on a consistent basis, that's not good enough. But you can check with your lender and find out. I used to do lending for 20 years, and I know that you get something out rural, and they want to do a loan on it, and they don't have a well for whatever reason. You're not going to get the finances on that. So you've got to be pretty sophisticated in being able to prove your case as to how you're going to survive with the water sources that you're getting. And there were subdivisions, and some of you may remember this if you've been in the industry long enough. I think one of them was in Kyle Butte area, and I think there was one up in North Texas that they actually ran out of water for that subdivision. And you have areas that don't have direct access to water, so they're buying it from other cities or from the LCRA or whoever's owning that water. And that's a big business. Like Russ was telling us, selling water is a big business, and the cities have the ability to do so through their aquifer. Like San Antonio with the Edwards aquifer, they have the ability to be able to do what they need to for water for the city. When you turn that tap on, it's like, oh cool, I have water. But nobody really thinks, where did that water come from? and you've got to think about, where's that water coming from? I know somebody that has a property up for sale right now, Coleman County area, and Coleman County is not allowing them to do a tap from that county. And so they have to rely on a well, and the well diggers have told them, no, there's no water down there. And I had to get my maps out to really truly look at the aquifers to see where the aquifers were lying. And they're right. There is no water there. So the only thing that they're going to be able to do is rainwater capture. That will be the only way that they can put a house on there and have something to survive. So it's an interesting concept. And anybody want to talk to me about it, call me.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. I just wanted to kind of pause for a moment to let everybody
Sure.
know. We did have the links to the maps that Stacy had shared. We did actually, as sorry that we didn't mention this, but majority of the information Stacy is reporting on is can be found at the TCEQ website, and that is the Texas Commission of Environmental Quality. So if you look in the chat below, we have put links there. And then also on the same website, TCEQ also had that drought map as well. So I posted those in the chat there for y'all, so you have them. So and then also we will be sharing the slides as well. So just let you know, we're always available to get you that information, as well as getting you Stacy's contact information, so you can reach out to her and maybe have a one-on-one. Awesome. I just wanted to take a pause there and just let everybody know that we put the links up in there to share that.
And I mean, the rest of it here, we're pretty much done anyway. There are rainwater collection laws out there. Legislation wise, Russ, who spoke to us last week, he's an attorney. He has done a lot for water and the water laws that we have on the books today. And here's a few that have been mentioned in here that may or may not be important to you, but I just went ahead and put in the water law info because I went through water law class. Actually, Russ was my professor. So, I love water. If you call and talk to me about water, I will be more than happy to talk to you, because I do love educating on this. There's so much to learn, and nobody knows it all. Things change all the time. I don't know everything, but, I have a love of water starting from when I was, very young, and was on lakes and rivers, and, spent my whole life basically in and around water. So that's really truly all that we've got. I will tell you right now, none of my courses are CE credited right now because I let that go since I was concentrating on my on my real estate career, and education wasn't paying the bills, and so I kind of let all that stuff go by the wayside. But we're talking about how I might be able to go back and get a few of these things back on the books. These are some of the classes that I wrote. The classes are there, they're written. There's a few things that I've been working on, the urban regional planning, which doesn't really help you guys much, but there's a few things that I'm working on that are not complete, but there's a bunch out there that I can teach on. So that's all I have. What questions do you guys have?
I don't see any in the chat so far. I'm sure they're a little overwhelmed because it is a lot of information and different tiers of information. The few questions I have is just to be clear. I asked a question to Stacy about the rainwater collection, and you know what? All of our answers with particular divisions of, whether it be drought issues or, what are the laws, we have to follow obviously the guidelines of our county, and then the federal guidelines as well. So just know that a lot of this is case by case. And then too, I obviously probably depending on what aquifer or what water conservation district you're in. So it's very important. It's very important to take and having like those maps that she shared and understanding if you have a property, is it in the water conservation district? You have to disclose that on the seller's disclosures. And then also too, what are the restrictions there? So really using these resources that Stacy has provided is very important. And as we know, water is gold here in Texas.
I'll also say too, if you do have any kind of questions, people at TCEQ, Texas Water Development Board, your county, everybody that I have spoken to as I was updating my maps and updating my information, I called a few of them. In fact, I even called Coleman County because I wanted more information on that property. But when you call them and you ask them at the county level, what do I need to do? If I want to do a well, if I want to, do rainwater capture, is there anything that I need to know? If I want to take water from the aquifer, or I want to take water from, the river, that's flowing next to my property, whatever your questions are, start with the county, because the county will tell you at that point what water conservation district you're in. And if you are in one, there are some counties, they don't have them. And then the groundwater management companies, districts, they'll also tell you those and who to talk to and why you want to talk to one versus the other. If you're going to do a well, they will tell you exactly what you need to do for the permitting of that well. The county is just instrumental in pointing you in the right direction. But if you just have basic questions that you want to ask somebody something, when I talked to TCEQ, oh my gosh, they were a wealth of information. The lady talked to me for probably 30 minutes over, what we can do and where we go for information. So make sure that you call them and just ask the question. They're just because they're government doesn't mean that you can't talk to them. I think she probably was a 30-something. She knew a lot about water. I think she also went to Texas State, same as I did, learned about water from there. So there was a lot that we could have the conversation. And of course, my education side of it, she was interested in that as well. So just, call and ask, and, they'll be happy to help you out.
That's so exciting. And I appreciate you. Actually, everyone, we have a surprise. So Stacy is one of the members in charge of hosting the regional rallies. I don't know if you've heard about these, but man, fast and furious, massive regional rallies. There's going to be 2 in Texas. One is going to be in San Antonio. I'm going to drop the link for that. It's going to show you when you click on the link to the regional rallies. And mind you, amazing speakers, amazing just leadership. But click on this link. go to this form and you actually can hover over and click on the town that you're closest to, and attend the rally. So super awesome, very excited. Also, the San Antonio event, myself and Alan Stewart, managing brokers of EXP Texas, will be emceeing. So I could not be more excited to be a part of this amazing opportunity. Like I said, the guest speakers, the leadership, the more you know, the more you grow. And this is a very independent business. We're independent contractors, and that means we're required to independent study to get that independent income. So the more you can feed yourself, the better in your career.
Well,
And
the
Stacey,
really neat thing,
you want to add to that as well, since you know more than I about this
I know,
event?
I mean, I'm living and breathing this every single day, 24/7. So I am the one that's helping to head up the San Antonio Regional Rally, and I can't be more excited for all of our agents, because even the agents that have closed their first transaction get to walk across the stage and let us all clap and applaud them, and encourage them to do more. Anybody that's capped gets to go and walk across the stage and say hello, and it's just, for me, I think the recognition of our agents is huge, because it's easy for us not have an office to go to kind of take ourselves out and not be a part. These rallies are helping you be a part of your peers, people you can meet that you can refer transactions to. So it's a really big deal. Not only that, but the production side of this, we're going to have two wonderful speakers coming in. One's coming from Maine. He's going to talk to us about Google, how we can improve our Google presence so we get more transactions. The other one is coming from Colorado, and he's going to talk to us about how to build out our sphere of influence. If you have 150 people on your list of sphere of influence, I can't talk today, that's not enough. I mean, you need to have 700, 1,200. You need to have a lot of people in your sphere so you can be pulling, information from them, asking for help when you need it, just letting them know that you're out there so you're not the secret agent. So the education is huge. We also have two people who are going to represent corporate. Curtis Dixon is going to be there, which is going to be amazing. I've not met Curtis in person, so that's going to be fun to meet Curtis. And, he's high energy and has so much going on, and I know he'll have lots to tell us. And then, of course, Lindsey and Alan are going to be fun to have our brokers up on stage being our MCs is going to be amazing as well. So I'm really excited about this. It's $49.99 a ticket. You may buy one extra ticket to bring somebody with you, which is, for me, I already bought my second ticket. So hurry up and buy your tickets, and let's see where we are on numbers. I want to be able to get this sold out with 225 people. So come on, bring your friends, and bring, people from outside EXP would be great. So
Absolutely. And I tell people all the time, even if you're not with EXP, the content and just some of the speakers that they get outside of the company are so valuable, because our company is very connected, not because of the brokerage, but just our world holdings company that houses our brokerage. There's Verbella, there's Success, there's Biome. So our parent company owns so many amazing brands and businesses. So it's very awesome, I think, to get experience and kind of see more of a leadership role in inspiring your soul, so to speak. But no, Stacy, thank you so much. Y'all check this out. I'm actually working on, before I log off here, I apologize. I was going to grab the slide link that I had for y'all, and it got a little buried. So bear with me one moment so I can get that for y'all. Want to make sure that it's shareable. Let's see, Stacy's slides. Sorry, I was a little off my game, everybody. Oh, I know it's here. Oh, there it is. It's
I
right
was
in
gonna say
front of me. My Google Drive is, as y'all can imagine, is overloaded. It's all right. Let's share this puppy. Anyone with
Yeah,
a link can be.
I never want to show my my screen in classes because I have a lot of things that are open at one time because I do a lot of research.
Oh, I know. And I was dropping the links in the chat, and I was like just so worried. Copy link. There we go. I apologize, y'all. I'm normally a little more prepared. Stacy had so many links with her presentation. It took me a
Sorry
while
about
to find it.
that.
Awesome. Well, there you go. There's the shared Google Drive to this presentation. Very excited. Thank y'all so much for joining us. We can't wait to have you back next Friday at 11 Central Standard Time. And thank you so much, Stacy, for joining us. We greatly appreciate you.
And I want to see everybody in San Antonio on March 21st.
Yes, I will be there.
I know you will.